The growing threat of climate change could define the contours of this century more dramatically than any other. This is a turning point. This is the moment we finally determined we would save our planet. 14 of the 15 warmest years on record have occurred since the year 2000.
We, through agriculture, have impacted the planet more than any other human behavior, and in particular onto lands less suitable for agriculture.
When we think about coping with climate change in Africa, there are already many techniques that we can borrow from parts of the world that deal with a lot of volatility anyway.
Probably 5 years ago, when this concept of climate smart agriculture really arose, people were talking almost entirely about specific in-field practices.
But I think we're doing things backwards. We really need to be looking much more at the system level of the value chain and the approach of how to drive changes in behavior, in commercial relationships, in policy, and how these kind of changes at a much higher level pull CSA practices through the system rather than trying to push these CSA approaches from the ground up.
For example, in Zambia, there's only one season. So the farmer has to work hard between November and March to be able to have enough food for the rest of the year. But why should it be the case? If the farmer can do 2 hectares, get 40 tons, get all the money he wants, but also invest in other areas that will be able to give him income. Because at the end of the day, farmers need incomes and access to markets.
And for engaging the private sector, you really need to put it into business language. So you need to put it into dollars and cents, you need to put it into cost benefit, and you need to make it actionable.
In Zambia, most farmers will look at the weather first before they can make a decision on which crop to plant.
So you don't just have a weather event unconnected to an economic event.
What happens at the local level has global implications, and I think it's that old saying, act locally and think globally.
There's a lot of focus on maize and drought-tolerant maize, drought-escaping maize, but many farmers want to move to other crops, or they want to engage in crop rotation, they want to diversify what they're producing, and they often feel that they can't get high-quality seed for these other crops. Crops like green grams, like millets, sorghum, crops that really work in ASIL areas, the arid and semi-arid areas in Africa.
Hybrid maize, in certain conditions, it doesn't perform very well. We are encouraging them not to grow one crop, at least 2 crops, so that they are able to mitigate the risks of climate change.
Sustainable intensification, which has been at the center of our research strategy in Feed the Future, needs to be climate smart.
What's different is we're not talking about blanket recommendations for good agricultural practices. We're talking about taking those good agricultural practices and saying, how do they line up to this risk or exposure gradient we have? Where is this practice more relevant, and where is that practice more relevant?
I think your local lens has a lot to do with how fearful you become about change.
Another impact on the farming system is the small land holdings in Rwanda, which is like average latest report was showing 0.2 hectares per farm, which means like when they lose their season, they don't have any other option.
Rwanda has, of its land area, 50% of it is mapped as suitable for agriculture. Rwandans farm 80% of their country, which means that they've gone quite a bit beyond that land area suitable for agriculture.
Rwanda had like 4 seasons, 2 rainy season and 2 dry season, which had been really leading the farming cycles for farmers. Now we have been observing change in those seasons. The rain season sometimes are shorter or longer, and farmers are not used to get to that. They are not experienced of having those kind of season changing, because their way they have been farming for decades or for centuries was based on the 4 seasons. Now with the perturbance of those seasons, they are getting disturbed. The whole cycle is disturbed.
The people we're trying to serve are the people least prepared to adapt. They lack capital, they lack access to innovations. In many cases, the innovations just lack.
In many cases, the science is far ahead of our ability to deliver it, so the production and distribution systems, from my perspective, are absolutely essential.
How do you understand what the leverage points are so that you're not just achieving very specific incremental change, right, at the farm level, which obviously is important, but actually what are your higher level leverage points that shift the system? How do you actually move things at scale?
Climate smart agriculture is smart agriculture informed by climate science. So if that's the case, what is smart agriculture?
Communities often come into conflict. If there are policies in place to address those conflicts before they occur, there you have a climate smart ag policy already in place.
That's the important thing, is at the end of the day, you know, our project or our work in Ghana is only as effective as what we can help the existing value chain members achieve.
I certainly think a private sector driven approach is necessary and good, but to forget the public sector role in climate smart agriculture is going to result in a heck of a lot of disadoption.
If you fail at the farm level, necessarily you will fail at all other levels, right? And if you fail at the consumer end, you're not going to have the resources necessary to invest back at the farm level. We have to find ways to link these actors and have linked conversations, so effectively we're working as a system and not as individuals, with each individual trying to maximize their benefit.